and get us underway. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the second day of our sort of breakout rooms. So we've got Nicky Pybus with us here, who's a pioneer minister in Bournville, Weston-super-Mare, and she's going to be sharing with us some of her stories and experiences of gathering community around a forest church at an allotment. She's got loads of experience working with churches and in family centres and in schools. And so I'm just excited to hear what you have to share with us this afternoon. Over to you, Nicky.
Thank you. So hi everyone. I hope you're not too hot and bothered by this point. I'm going to just share with you the story of our little forest church in Weston-super-Mare on the Bournville estate. We started it in September last year. So the Bournville estate has got quite a negative reputation, fair to say. It's quite a notorious area. It's an area of high deprivation, although I hate that phrase. But yeah, it's a council estate in Weston. And this is our forest church. So the picture that you can see now was taken at Forest Church, and we run it at a community allotment on the estate, which literally backs onto the primary school. You can just about see the roof of the primary school there in the background. So it's very much in the heart of the estate, and yet somehow it's kind of a place of sanctuary, a place of peace, a place of nature and wildlife, and it's an amazing space in the middle of the estate. So how did we begin our forest church? Well, as Phil said, I'm a full-time pioneer minister there. I've been in post now 3 years. So 2.5 years of that have been the pandemic, which has been a challenge in itself. But actually what happened in lockdown, as I'm sure lots of people did, the one thing we were able to do was to go outside and to meet people outside. And so that's a lot of what I did. And when we were able to, I met people in groups of 6 down at the allotment, because the allotment has this lovely communal space with picnic benches and barbecue area and stuff. And the people that I met, the 6 or so people that I was meeting every week, started to say how peaceful they were finding the space and how good it was for their well-being, that they recognized how amazing that space is. And we'd also started, when we were able to, we started doing some after-school activities around nature. That's what this photo is taken from. And that was so popular. It was just a really, the take-up of it was brilliant by local families. So we thought there's something in this, that people want to be outside in nature, they want to be doing stuff. So starting a forest church just seemed like a natural follow-on from that. So in terms of my team, so you'll see in this photo here, the 3 people that are standing up kind of in the middle of the photo are 3 of my helpers. So Darren on the left is a single dad who lives on the estate. He literally has lived there his whole life. He's got 2 young children. And then Debbie in the middle with a hat on. She's brilliant. She's also a steward in the church. I have to say Darren is unchurched, dips in and out sometimes of church, but basically doesn't do church. Debbie is a steward in the church and also lives on the estate, has done many years. And then Natalie with the yellow top on there, she also has lived on the estate her whole life and is one of my best friends on the estate. So they are part of my team. They were part of the group of 6 to 8 people that we only met as a group of 6 in lockdown, that were part of that through lockdown with me, and they're part of my team and they're brilliant. We also have Margaret and Phil, who are not in this photo, but they are an older couple that belong to St Andrew's Church, and they are brilliant because, well, they're brilliant for lots of reasons, but Phil plays the guitar, which is fantastic, and Margaret does a lot of amazing crafts. So not just, you know, your basic craft. She's a weaver. She does make stuff out of willow. She's incredible. They used to run a small holding in Scotland, so they're very connected with nature, but they're also part of the traditional church. So it's great to have them on board as well. So how do we go about it? Well, this is our very first flyer that we used, and you'll see that when we first started, we described what we were doing each week. We put the theme of what we're doing each week to give families, well, it's not just for families, any age can come, but it's mostly families that come along, to give them an idea of the sorts of things we might be doing each week. And that worked quite well. The problem we had with it is that it meant that we didn't really have much flexibility. If we wanted to suddenly change what we were doing 1 week or whatever, do something different, it was a bit tricky if we said we're doing this week and people expect fireworks. It's a bit difficult not to do fireworks. But that was our starting point. We got a really good uptake from local families and people that don't have kids as well, but mostly local families. And what I should say before I go much further is, because some of you might not know what Forest Church is, or you may have a sense of Forest Church, but maybe not quite know what it is. Well, Forest Church looks different depending on which one you go to. So there's not just one way of doing Forest Church, but the really important thing about Forest Church is it's not just about taking a normal church service and doing it outside. It's actually a different thing. It's about participating in nature. It's about experiencing the wonder and the awe and beauty of God in and through creation. So it's a much deeper connected sense of being in nature, being part of nature. And so all the activities we do are very interactive. It's literally, you get your hands in the soil, you get dirty, you pick things up, you interact with stuff of nature, and you feel the rain and you feel the wind, and you're part of that. So that's what Forest Church is all about. We changed our flyer after that first term to be a much more generic flyer. So just saying, this is kind of what we do. We do some crafts and outdoor activities, and we have a campfire, and it's all about wildlife, so that people again have an idea. But we're calling it church because, you know, importantly, we have a Christian ethos, and we do talk about God and Jesus, and we use Bible stories and stuff. So and this is our latest flyer, which we did in the summer. Well, it's still summer, but you know what I mean. We started it in the summer term because we wanted to actually, for a different thing to do this term, we've taken Forest Church out into the local parks as a bit of an experiment. So away from the allotment into the local parks where there's lots more people around, just enjoying being outside. And actually that's been quite successful, and it's been an interesting journey. So moving on, sorry, aware of time. This is an example of the sort of session, the timings. Timings are very approximate, but this is the sort of thing that we do every week. I should say we do it on a Sunday. I didn't really want to do it on a Sunday. That wouldn't be my first choice, but we asked local people what time of the week, what day of the week was best for them. And they said Sunday afternoons are a time when we've basically done the stuff we want to do, that we need to do, shopping and whatever, and family commitments and stuff. And actually the kids are a bit bored on Sunday afternoons, and that's a bit of a nothing time. So it'd be good to have something on a Sunday afternoon. So we do it on a Sunday. We started it at 3 o'clock that first term. And we found very quickly that 3 o'clock became, by 3:30, 4 o'clock, it was getting dark, which is what happens, obviously, autumn, winter. So we decided to change it to 2 o'clock. And actually, when we did that, well, before we did that, we asked those that are coming, you know, what do you feel about doing it at 2 o'clock? And they said, actually, that works much better for us. That's brilliant. And so we've kept it at 2 o'clock. So we run it from 2 till 3:30. We find that an hour isn't quite long enough. 2 hours is too long. So an hour and a half feels like the right amount of time. Sometimes in the winter, if it's really cold, we might just stick to an hour, depending on, you know, what the weather's doing. So this is our general sort of layout of the session. So about 1:45-2-ish, we light the fire. We always have a fire pit, even in the summer when it's boiling hot. In fact, this Sunday, if we go ahead this Sunday, because given the warnings about the weather and the heat, we may decide to have a paddling pool rather than a fire pit. But we'll have that central focus feature of the middle of the fire. And about then 2 o'clock we start. Now, I don't know if any of you have done anything with families, people that have young kids. They don't really turn up at 2. They turn up between 2 and about 2:20 is the reality. And I know I've got 2 kids, they're teenagers now, and I know the reality of trying to get somewhere on time. So we have a loose start, and that's fine. So between 2 and 2:15, we have stuff going on. We have the fire pit going. Obviously, we've got outdoor activities. Kids can climb trees. They can go on this. There's a swing, there's swing ball and stuff like that we put up as well. So there's stuff for them to do. And we always welcome people with a hot drink. Really important, especially in the winter months. We have tea and coffee as they arrive, and also squash for the kids. And then about 2:15, we start the main thing, and we introduce the theme, and we have a main craft. Now, with the craft, as I've said, it's very linked with nature. So it's not like sticking things together with plastic bits and pieces that you buy in the range and stuff like that. This is a craft that is using sticks, pine cones, leaves, flowers, mud, anything, bark, you know, all the stuff you find outdoors. So it's very rustic and messy, but also free. So it doesn't cost really hardly any money. And we are, as I said, as well as the craft, we have other outdoor activities, because not all children and not all people like to do craft activities. We also have a range of games and activities as well. We then, at about 3 o'clock, we gather people together again around the fire, and we do a story or a talk, that kind of thing. We make it really fun and engaging and interactive. We often ask the children to act out parts in the story if we're doing a parable or doing a story about Jesus. To bring it to life and ask them, well, how are you feeling in the story right now? What's going on? But we keep it short, keep it fun. We do some songs, not always church songs. We have used songs like Let It Go from Frozen by changing some of the words. We did that last autumn when we were talking about the trees letting go of the leaves, and that we need to let go of our worries and our fears. And so we used the song Let It Go, and that worked really well. So we try and use songs that either the families know the tune of, and we change the words, or we use songs that are very easy to pick up, and they like songs that repeat and that are quite easy to kind of learn very quickly. And then we end with a prayer, very short, very much everyday language. And I always say, you know, we're going to have a short prayer now. If you want to say amen at the end, that just means that you agree. And every single session, we've had a very loud amen from everyone, which has been brilliant. So giving people the permission to do it or not do it, and they always do. The picture here is our safety talk. We do it visually because it's just much more fun than having a big list of stuff. And we go through that every week. And the kids now know the rules and they know the safety stuff. So I ask them, what are our safety rules? And so that involves them as well. So that's at the beginning. I forgot to mention that, but we do a safety talk to make sure that everything is health and safety all good. Yeah, we even have notices at the end. So it is church. It's definitely church because we do notices. So what's worked? What were my sort of top tips, if you like? Well, I mentioned my team. It's really important to have a reliable and supportive team, and a team that are willing to take risks and do crazy things sometimes. That's really important. And sometimes things work and sometimes they don't, but that's okay. For us, running it weekly really works well because it's about building community. So doing it every week in term time. So we do have time off. And there have been the odd weeks that we don't do because we're away or whatever. But generally, doing it weekly really helps to get to know and build relationships with people. What's also worked well is we've had visiting speakers, people that have come to demonstrate things. And for example, we had one lady, a local lady, Debbie, who's not in anything connected with church at all. She is a keen bird watcher, and I met her through another thing that I went to, and I said, oh, would you come along to our forest church and talk to us about birds and birdsong and how we recognize them? And she loved that, and it was brilliant. So we've done stuff like that, and that worked really well. I've mentioned already the hot drinks on arrival, really, really important, especially when it's cold. We do have a guy that helps us sometimes called Nathaniel, and he is a local curate, and he's also a qualified outdoor activities instructor. And he brings his Kelly kettle. And I don't know if people know what a Kelly kettle is, but it's basically like a chimney that you light a little fire at the bottom, and it's in the walls of the pot, if you like, is the space for the water, and it heats up like a chimney, and the kids love it. And that's been a real hit. So if you know someone with a Kelly kettle and those skills and other bushcraft skills, that's brilliant. How am I doing for time? Am I all right? I'm going to carry on for a bit longer. Yeah. I've mentioned that. Having, like I say, other things outside for kids to do, so not just the craft activity. You'll see in the picture, pumpkins, that was really popular. We had 68 people come for that session. That was a little bit crazy. That was our most popular thing we did. And the other thing we do, because we don't meet in school holidays, we always have a social in the school holidays. So we meet normally on a Saturday afternoon, evening, around the fire, toast marshmallows, have a chat. There's no real agenda, but that's worked really well, just having social time, just enjoying each other's company and enjoying being in the space together. So that's worked really well. I'd be lying if I said it's all gone well. So what's not worked? Well, these are our lovely gazebos. Now, they do work very well. However, January did not work well because it was so cold and wet and windy. And the thing about Weston-super-Mare is that it's often very windy. And these lovely gazebos are great, but if it gets, I mean, you can see the picture, the girl's hair there is blowing. This was a particularly windy session. We managed to get the gazebos up, but if it gets much windier, we can't use them. And there is no shelter at the allotment. So that is a challenge. And, you know, we do have brollies we give out to people and stuff, but again, in the wind, they're no good. So that's a tricky one for us. That hasn't worked so well. But we are, as I speak, we have just got funding towards a permanent shelter at the allotment. We need £6,000. We've got 1,500 in the bank. Woo! So we're on our way. We're a quarter of the way there to get an actual permanent shelter at the allotment. What else didn't work? Fire safety was an eye-opener to us because we didn't quite realise on our first few sessions how little experience that children and even parents have had of fires, open fires, and the risks of that. So we've had to really tighten up our safety briefing at the beginning and make sure that we repeat that every week. And actually now there's a culture of understanding, you know, the kids understand the fire and they're not scared of it, but they understand, they have a respect for it, and that works really well. I talked about changing the start time. Oh, the other thing just to say that didn't work that well was some of the crafts we did were too fiddly, too difficult for our younger children. So, and also too prescribed, like we're making this and it has to look like this at the end. Those sorts of things don't work so well. So what we tend to do now is give the kids a challenge and the parents. So last week we were doing the theme was about the sea, and we did about Jesus calming the storm, and we challenged everyone, go and make a boat or at least something that floats, and all you've got is what you can find. So go and use twigs, leaves, we had some string, and of course they made little rafts and little boats, and it was great. And they loved that because there was no kind of set prescribed thing. So those sorts of things work really well, having that freedom and creativity. We did do a stargazing evening, and there were no stars because it was too cloudy. So I would recommend don't plan those things until about, you know, a couple of days before if you know there's going to be a clear night. So that was just, again, one to put down to experience. The other thing we found out a few weeks ago is we planned to do a Forest Church session when the Western Air Show was on. And I didn't quite realise how popular Western Air Show is. Literally nobody turned up because everyone was down the air show. So again, it's about being aware of other events that are going on that mean that actually people just might not come, and that's okay. And actually we thought next year we'll just do a social down at the air show, you know, and we'll just incorporate Forest Church into that. Right, move on. So brilliant resources. This is the book that you can see the picture of there. This is amazing. The Celtic Wheel of the Year. It's fantastic. I should be on commission because I'm always recommending this to everyone. Tess Ward is amazing. She's an Anglican priest. She's also a hospice chaplain, and she is a big advocate for Celtic spirituality. And she's written this book that literally goes through the year, month by month, and picks out what's happening in the seasons naturally. What are the themes of the festivals that are Celtic, Christian, Jewish, other faiths, pagan stuff, and she weaves it all together into themes. So that gives you, without having to reinvent the wheel, you've got your themes there straight away. The other one is the Forest Church book. That's amazing. It's only quite a small book and very easy to read, but it's just so inspiring about the ethos about Forest Church and what it's all about. That's brilliant. Rachel Summers, who is a friend of mine, she's brilliant. She's a Forest School leader and also runs Forest Church where she is. She has written 2 books, again, very small, thin books, not expensive at all. Wild Advent and Wild Lent, they are fantastic, full of really good activity ideas to do outside. This one here, Vitamin N for Nature, is an amazing book as well. This is not a Christian book at all, but it's all about things that you can do outside in all weathers, really good ideas. And I love this quote here from the guy that wrote the book, Richard Louv. We cannot protect something we do not love. We cannot love what we do not know, and we cannot know what we do not see and touch and hear. You know, if we want people to protect this planet and actually care for the creation and care for the world, they've got to get out there and experience it. They've got to get out there with their senses and really feel it and see it, and then they'll fall in love with it, and then they'll want to care for it. So that's my hope, is that Forest Church helps people to do this stuff. Any questions? Any questions? I'm sorry, that was a bit of a whistle-stop tour. There's
That
also
was
loads of websites
amazing.
and Facebook pages that I could recommend, but I'm just aware of the time. So if people want to know that, I can always email those to people if that's helpful. But yeah.
Marvelous. Thank you, Nikki. Everyone, if you could just show your appreciation in the chat or through the reactions, and also add any questions that you have into the chat. So Luke is asking any tips for gathering team, finding getting volunteers hard. Any tips on that one?
Yeah, so I mean, as I say, my team was people that I got to know through lockdown and through just living here. I would say start with the people you know. You'll probably know some people that will care about creation and don't always go just for church people. So in fact, I would always recommend not going for church people. Have a mix of both, but actually, yeah, maybe join some local groups that are about nature and, you know, find people that have that common ground, that love of nature, and just get to know them, make friends with them, and then say, hey, do you fancy doing this with me? You know, so yeah, just try and get to know lots of people in the community, really. And I've got, this is going to sound like a random suggestion, but I've got a little dog. She's very cute and she comes everywhere with me. And I always say she does most of the pioneering for me, because through having a dog, everyone chats to you. So and also it gives me an excuse to walk around the estate loads and loads and loads and bump into people. And so she is my social butterfly. And everyone knows Lily. She's a little local celebrity now. So get yourself a dog or borrow someone's dog. But no, seriously, get to know people. And I think, yeah, and pray. I mean, God will bring the right people. So I probably should have started with that, shouldn't I? But also the other thing is approach your local schools, because I found that through the schools, either the teachers or the parents, the teachers will know the parents that might want to help out as well. So that's a good connection to make as well.
Excellent. Good answer. Ruth Wilson is asking, do you see Forest Church as primarily a gathering for seekers? And how have people from Inherited Church engaged?
It's a really good question. Yeah. So yes, is the answer to the first one, but not exclusively. So most, I would say 90% of the people that come are completely unchurched. Don't go to church at all. They might go to a baptism, maybe if a friend's child's being baptized, or a wedding, or maybe at Christmas, but they literally don't do church. They're all from the local estate. Like I say, they all live on the estate. So they are definitely not from the Inherited Church. How has the Inherited Church reacted to it? Well, a mixture, I'll be honest. As I say, we've got Margaret and Phil, who are brilliant, who are definitely part of Inherited Church, and they just embrace it and love it. And I think that's really helped, because they're now our advocates in the Sunday morning congregation. And also what we found when we first started, we had various members of the congregation coming along just to find out, what's this all about? We don't know what this is all about. We're going to come along and see. And that's the best thing, I think, to say to people is come and experience it, come and see. It won't be for everyone. And some people can't, it's just not their cup of tea. They don't like being outdoors and whatever, and that's fine. So it's not about trying to persuade everyone that this is the only way to do church, of course. But yeah, once they experience it, they understand what it's about. And then they'll either choose if it's for them or not for them. But I think it is primarily for those that are seeking, but then it also brings to the table something that, because there's lots of reasons why people don't relate to traditional Sunday morning services. I'm one of them. That's why I'm a pioneer. I struggle with Inherited Church, even though I've got a very strong Christian faith and grew up as a Christian and everything else. So I think it reaches a lot of different people. Yeah.
We've had a lot of a similar experience at Hazelnut. And so I just feel like our final question should be one of the problems that we had to solve at Hazelnut, which is, what do you do about toilets?
That's a very good question. And we have an amazing solution. So at the allotment, there is a compost toilet. So yeah, I mean, it's not the best toilet in the world, and I have to make sure that it's in a decent state for people to use, but there is a toilet. When we go to the local parks, there often isn't a toilet, but quite handily, one of the local parks is next to the church. Well, it's in a community centre. That's where the church is. It's part of the community centre. So we've got the keys, so we can open that up if someone needs a toilet. And the other one is right near where Margaret and Phil live, and so they let people use their toilet. So we found ways around it.
Very good, very good. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us, Nikki. That was such an inspiring presentation. So much good advice and content in there, and also some stuff that you learnt from. So yeah, really good. Thanks for coming and spending your time with
Thank
us.
you.
And
If
we'll
anyone
see
wants
you
any more,
around.
they can. They're very welcome to email me. I've put it there. Feel free. I don't mind at all, and I'm quite happily pointing you in the direction of different resources and all that sort of stuff. So feel free to come back to me afterwards.
Excellent. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, and you. Thank you.